Hello, what's up, everybody? My name is Mario Pichardo. Welcome to another episode of Methods. Here I have joining me Kirk Pineda.
Hello.
Kirk is just got his master's actually in mental health counseling, so he is definitely the smarter of the two of us. However, it's my show, so it doesn't matter. Uh, so I promised you guys that I'd do a show. Um, where I was talking to Kirk. Unfortunately, we recorded something, but it didn't get. Uh, Due to technical difficulties, the audio was pretty bad. So we'll record. We're gonna re-record part of it. We'll go into probably a new direction. So, um, if you guys, since I know all of you guys were so excited for that, we'll re-record it for you. So, um, Kirk, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing okay. I after we recorded yesterday, I was definitely like, damn, that really sucked. I really thought that your backup was gonna be the clutch, and then once I put that thing on, I was like, damn. I was like, I don't know what went out wrong, but we both kind of but it's whatever. At least thanks for being flexible and open and stuff like that, because that definitely helps.
No worries. I try to be as free as a bird for the rest of my days. Yeah.
Yeah, you kind of breaking up a little bit there.
Oh, am I?
Yeah, a little bit. It was all I heard was like more.
Hold on. Let me turn off my Wi-Fi and use LTE and see how that goes.
Oh, yeah, maybe it's that. I'm not sure.
Ah!
Oh, okay. Well, there we go. We got you back.
Okay, cool. Sorry.
Um, so just to briefly touch on the topic, at least, we were talking in our last one that we recorded. We were talking about what your favorite game was, and you actually gave me a couple different answers because it does depend based on what you're really asking. And I think that one of those games you said was Dota. And you
Yes.
said Dota was your favorite. If you could only pick one game, if I remember correctly, you said if I could only pick one game that I could play for the rest of my life, I'd pick Dota. Why? Why'd you
Uh,
say that?
so Dota is one of those games that's like, for I've been playing it since 2011, and it's one of those games where it's just the replayability and the amount of like new stuff that happens every time a patch comes out, every time it's completed, every time add a new hero, things like that. And I think what keeps me coming back for more is that every match, like no two matches are the same, and so like that always brings me back. And of course, I have over time, being who I am over the microphone and behind it, sometimes I tend to attract certain characters who actually wound up sticking around for the long run. So I've been friends with some people that I've met over Dota for about a good close to 3 to 5, 6 years now. And so like definitely Dota is one of those things that's kind of like helped me not only meet other people, but it's just something that I can just do and expect something different every time I play it.
Yeah, and I think there's definitely something that's like really kind of exciting about that, even after I think 3 or 5 years, because if you can jump back into a game that you've been playing for 5 years and not be like totally, you know what I mean, over it, then that kind of it's just a testament to what is actually there for you to do,
Yeah.
you know? So, I mean, you said you've met some friends on Dota. How did you I mean, are these are people you just straight up met in game, like through chat and stuff like that, and you're like, okay, this guy doesn't suck.
Uh,
Oh, let me become friends with him.
yeah, it was one of those like I'll run into like a group of people and then they pick me up if anything. I try to be like once I get settled in with like a group of friends, I kind of stop talking as much. But
Yeah.
um, hold on. Side note, um, I may get interrupted, but we'll see.
All
Um,
right. That's okay. It's good.
okay, so going back, sometimes I'll just be myself over the mic. I might feel like maybe I had a little bit of too much sugar on the first time, so I might be a little more active than usual over the mic, and sometimes that people really enjoy that kind of energy, and I wind up picking them up. I've had friends made that are currently living in West Virginia. turns out it was like a whole like group of friends of like 8 people, and that turned out really nicely, and I'm close with all of them.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah. And then I met someone else who I think is currently 36 years old. He
Oh
is
wow.
Yeah, he's 36, lives in Portugal, and he
Wow.
recently worked for YouTube, and now he works for Airbnb, and he is about to be a father in the coming months. So it's kind of weird to like not only just hear people's lives progress as they do, but like just in a way, like yeah, the age difference might be wide, but like in a way, you grow up with these people, and I definitely certainly asked a few questions of him, being that he's like a decade I am. So there's been a lot of learning.
Is he Portuguese himself?
Yes, he is. Yep.
Okay. So he's kind of been working remotely for these companies from Portugal. That's cool. That's cool. You know, it's actually kind of crazy because that's like such a testament to what the internet is. You can meet someone who works in Portugal and have a relationship with them even though they're that much older than you. Like that's really something, man. How long have you guys known each other?
We've known each other for 6 years now.
Oh wow. There you go. Like that's that's crazy. So, you know, I also have a buddy like that I met back in the PlayStation days. So that was after Maple Story for me. And he had a stupid name. His name was like it was like a version of the N-word, but it was out of the Boondocks, so everything was like super slurred.
Oh,
And I just remember, yeah, I met him through a mutual friend, and I was like just making fun of his name. And then he started making fun of my name, and then we kind of just became friends after that. Yeah, it was cool. We used to play Nazi zombies all the time, and I remember he introduced me. He's the one who introduced me to a lot of games I wouldn't have played otherwise. Like I would not have played Dark Souls if not for that guy, and you know how I like to talk about that game all the time.
absolutely.
Um, yeah, and so it's funny, man, and he was actually what's the word ambulance guy. He was like the paramedic. He was a paramedic, yeah. And he did the night shift, and so I learned all about that. He invited me out to Los Angeles a couple of times. I never went. Now I kind of wish I did, but I still keep in touch with him even though we don't talk as much. But you know, it's crazy like the people that you meet online, the things you can like kind of the bonds you can kind of create. But you know what too, and I mean not to say this is a downer thing, but there's something really different about meeting someone kind of like in person as opposed to like being friends with someone online. I don't know if you've ever met anybody that you kind of talked to online before. I think you might have actually told me about an encounter you had, didn't
Where
you? Or
I met someone in person that I initially met online.
yeah, like, but I mean on like a game. I know you've met people for sure through other means, but it's particularly through a game. I don't know if you've ever had that experience. Not that it's too much different, right? I mean, it's not really like this crazy different thing, but I don't know if that's ever happened to you
Where I've met someone.
that you met through a game, like you know, like a gamer buddy kind of thing.
Um, yeah, no, I don't believe that's happened to me.
No?
No, I don't think. I mean, like yeah, like in passing, I've met people like as strangers, and then I found out they also played online, like and vice
Yeah,
versa. Also
yeah.
met people online, and then met them in person. I've done
Yeah.
that.
See, because there's like a weird thing where you have like this preconceived idea of who the like you hear someone's voice and you're like, okay, they definitely look something like this, and then you meet them and you're like, oh, okay, so out of the what I expected.
Yeah,
Not in a bad way. It's just they're not they're just different.
oh yeah,
Oh man. Yeah. Yeah. So I was gonna ask you. So Dota is your favorite game. You've been playing Dota for a long time. What role do you play? I'm just curious.
I,
Primarily.
so primarily as of late, I unfortunately I've subjected a lot of my friends to dealing with me playing mid. I've been playing a while.
Yeah.
Um, and the reason I'm currently doing that is because so like Dota has like this like um how do I put this like a ranking system, but not like no ranking is not the word.
Yeah.
It's like the system. So like there's like over 100 like 35 heroes in the game,
Yeah.
and if you play it over and over again, you'll start getting like these little badges and levels that will represent like, oh, like this guy is a bronze tier broodmother, or like a golden tier broodmother, platinum tier, and then master tier. So what I'm doing right now is that I'm currently trying to pursue a master level on broodmother, which is level
Yeah.
20, sitting on 14. And previously, before that, now broodmother is a mid hero, so I have to go mid with her.
Mm.
But before that, I did achieve mastery once with a hero before Broodmother, and that was Oracle, and he is a support player. So basically,
Ah.
what role do I really play in Dota? To be honest with you, I'll play anything. It's just a matter of like, is the hero fun to me? And so, like for me, Oracle was really fun, like short cooldowns, high burst damage, but still a support. And then
Mm.
Broodmother, she's literally the only spider in the game whose voice actor is the same voice actor as Gladys from Portal. Um, and then
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
it's great. And then the after I do Broodmother, I'm looking to play Earth Spirit, which is like this. He has like all these different abilities, and all of his abilities are like skill shots, and you have to have like a lot of patience and timing to play that hero. So that's probably my next thing that I'm looking at. So to answer your question, I pretty much play whatever. I just want to from playing is fun. That's all that matters to me.
Now, yeah, and I mean that's what it's all about. I mean, it's like the whole reason people play games just to have fun. But there's like it's funny too because there's also a subset of the population. Like I remember just knowing people who like played games just for like the trophies or the achievements or stuff like that. And so they'd go through like these hard, arduous, like kind of like spending days and days, like entire weekends just trying to grind out one thing that they didn't even like doing, but they just wanted the it turned into a huge thing. But so I guess with Dota, uh there's a lot of people who play Dota, but for those who don't know, I think Dota has like a huge player base, right? I mean, it's pretty big.
Yeah, a huge player base of real players.
Wow. Yeah. I was gonna
It's
ask you about that. So for those who don't know, how does Dota actually play? Like how does it actually work?
So Dota, if for those of you that may be unfamiliar, are like, I'm guessing that to answer your question is like, how does it run like like to someone who's unfamiliar with it?
Yeah, someone who's never played it before, who's listening to this doesn't really even ever heard of the game. What is it? Like how do you actually play this game?
Sure, yeah. So Dota is what they call a multiplayer online battle arena, also known as a MOBA. So if you're familiar with other games like Smite or League of Legends, the concept is pretty similar, albeit that Dota has more punishing mechanics. And so the bottom line with Dota is that it is a 5v5 team based game, emphasis on team based. You basically have two teams, the Radiant and the Dire, and basically you guys are trying to destroy each other's base while defending your own. Um, and so the characters in those 5v5s, you select an arrangement of heroes. In League of Legends, they're called champions. And basically, you pick out a hero that you like or that you think will help the team or will counter the opponent's heroes. And so it becomes this kind of like little game of chess, but like living chess, I would say. And so you kind of have to strategize and think things through, see which abilities work well with others, how can you wombo combo the enemy team, and it usually gets decided by the team fights that take place. So like whenever you guys happen to be gathering in a certain area of the map, you guys will duke it out 5v5. And whoever wins that team fight, you will probably take some objectives and get
Yeah.
closer to the enemy base.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the other thing with Dota 2 is that there's a lot of like I mean, how do you even like get to I've played League, so I know it from the League side, but how do you get to just understand like everything that's going on in there because you do have like I think 140 or some like crazy number of champions or heroes, and it's kind of like, well, how do you like, because each champion has their own abilities, right? I mean, it's kind of hard to know everything there is to know unless you've been playing for a while, right? I mean, how is
Yeah.
it?
So with I'm sorry, hit me with the question again.
Oh, I said when you're playing it because there's so many champions, and there's so much there's other stuff going on too. I mean, you got all these items you were telling me the other day. It's got to be pretty tough to learn to keep up with everything that's going on at once. I mean, for a newbie, how long do you think it takes for them to like start understanding what's happening?
I think after I would say maybe around like after maybe 100 games, if you're experienced with MOBAs, maybe even 50,
Yeah,
uh, probably be like the hallmark of like, okay, I kind of got a good grasp of like how this game works. There's still like an absurd amount for me to learn, but I am learning.
really.
Yeah, I would
You
say
even? You've been playing this for 6 years, you said, I think?
I've been playing so it's 2011, so like 9 years now.
Oh wow, yeah. Oh wow, almost on to going on 10. That's a lot.
Yeah, I would say yeah. Like it took me even now. Like there's certain things about Dota that I still don't figure, and like I'm getting close to a decade of playing this game, and
Yeah.
I'll admit I'm not that good. Like I mean, to my peers, yeah, but there will always be someone out there who's better, and I am friends with people who are not only better than I am, but also people who are like world ranked, like in the like in North America and in the world. Um, that are like really like high up there. And so like there's a lot, but to start for a beginner, I would say at least 100 games, and then by the time you get to like 250 to 500, you'll start understanding it. But the only thing is that there's a caveat here, is
Mhm.
that like people who I have a friend of mine who just started playing Dota. He has about I think like I would say around like 500 games under his belt now, and he just started playing I think last year. And which is a lot of Dota, come to think of it. And
Yeah.
the thing is that while yes, like Dota is like a very overwhelming game with like all of these like concepts and items and builds and strategies and things to do and things not to do, there's so many like the margin of knowledge that you are supposed to know is very small compared to the vast array of other knowledge that are completely incorrect or like completely wrong. Think for example, like we could even look at this like the example I'll try and like find a parallel here is like in the fitness industry, right? Like
Yeah.
they'll say like you want to lose weight or you want to lose weight like in your stomach, do a bunch of sit-ups. Like no, that's not the answer. The answer is to have a better diet and then lose fat overall, and your genetics will decide where your body loses the fat. But some people will wind up believing, no, if I just put like a bunch of saran wrap around my stomach and go run like a mile, I'll eventually lose body fat that way. And then they'll eat a cake after they eat. Like that's not the answer. And so
Hmm.
like the same Oda, you'll have like this one hero that's like a strength-based hero, but he's very reliant on his spells. So it's like, okay, do I build strength items or intelligence items on this hero? So it gets very confusing. And so like, it comes to question of like where is the meta? Like where is the common knowledge that's being used today on this particular patch? Where is it? Because if you don't know it, chances are you'll start coming up with all these like very wild and ridiculous builds that are, applicable on paper and in theory, but in execution they're actually a total disaster. And let's not even get started with how toxic the community can be.
Yeah, well, I think, Lee can be super toxic as well. I was uh well, it can be pretty toxic, let's leave it at that. But there was yeah, I mean, you're definitely right. It's funny how like whenever there's like a new patch or whenever there's a new anything, like it's kind of like changes the whole game in a way where like these champions get tweaked, this doesn't work on this champion anymore. And even just keeping up on that, if you've been out for 2 or 3 patches, I mean, the game is a little different now, and there are a couple things you do have to pick up on. So, yeah, I mean, there's always like a lot changing. I mean, and I think that's definitely part of the allure. They realize that okay, we got to change things at some point and make things a little more balanced out as we add new things in, so that people can want to come back and don't feel like it's unfair, but also that it keeps the spice going. So that seems pretty cool. I actually really enjoy that. How often does Dota, by the way, get new champions? Because I think you guys have like 140 or something already, right?
Yeah, somewhere around there. As of late, the pattern thus far has consistently been that there is a new hero released once every 8 to 12 months.
Ah, yeah. I mean, I think at this point that's probably a good idea because just having it's a lot. But anyway, so let me ask you. But that being said, I mean there are a huge. I mean the MOBA community is actually insanely huge. So you know that's a real testament to how much I think people like the genre. But let's pivot over. I wanted to ask you what was your favorite game for the story?
I would probably say a game that I've played or just like that I know of.
It could be either just and either one, either one.
Okay, well in that case, I would probably have to say Final Fantasy 14. Not 14, 13. Um,
Oh, okay.
Lightning. Yeah, yeah, 13.
Now, why would you say that? What is it about this game? Because I know Final Fantasy games are definitely story. I mean, they're definitely story games. They some of them have really nice combat things to it, but they really are story based games. So, what is it about 13? You think?
Um, I think for for Final Fantasy 13 story, like what's so like what draws me to it?
Yeah, yeah. Well, the funny thing too about 13 is that it's very kind of it has this like almost this like aura about it that has people very divisive about the about this game. So some people really like hate it, some people really like it, and it's kind of like you're I don't know really where the middle ground is here, but so what is it about the story that you think is awesome?
I think what's really awesome about it is like the defiance against the gods in this game, and it's all centered around, from what I recall, is centered around this thing called the Lassie brand. And personally, on a side note, I actually want to get a tattoo of this someday. Um, but the Lassie,
Yeah.
yeah. So the reason why I love Final Fantasy 13 so much is because the Lassie brand is basically, if I recall correctly, is this brand that's like placed upon certain selected individuals in the game, and those certain selected individuals have to be the characters that you wind up playing in the game. And if they are branded with this thing called the Lassie brand, Lassie being L apostrophe CIE, um,
Yeah.
it will meant that a god has chosen you to serve a particular purpose to enact upon the world. So you are like the vessel that the gods have chosen in order for you to enact some certain like grand event or like something to take place. And the brand starts off as something really simple. It's like a little mark, but then as time goes on, the mark, it opens, and it opens up even more. And the way that uh, the gods had represented it was that if the brand opens completely and did not fulfill the purpose that was given to you by that god, then you will transform into a monster. However, if you happen to fulfill the purpose of the god that chose you, then you become immortalized inside of a crystal. Now, granted, being trapped inside a crystal and being alive doesn't sound like a very fantastic way to go out either. So, the game
Yeah, it sounds like you lost either way.
way, and it's funny that you say that because the characters within the game also believe that to be true. Like, if I'm branded, then in a way, I'm pretty screwed. Like, no matter what I do. And some of the goals that these gods want me to do is actually to either kill my friends, destroy whole cities and civilization. Like, I'm not going to do that.
Oh
So
wow. So
these
there's a real. It sounds like there's a real war going on between gods and I guess
and
people.
yeah, and these people in the end, and this is what draws me completely, is that
That's
there's
pretty
like,
sick, actually. That's
yeah,
cool.
despite being like branded by the gods, they decide to defy the gods, and so they go like these grand combat like battles left and right, and not even
Yeah.
don't even like the general people, because when the people get branded, the people hate you too, and they want to kill you too. So they're like it's like eight people who are chosen by gods defy the gods while also trying to like they just want to live, like, and they're just normal people with very human emotions. So it not only like brings like these grand like archetypes in, but it also just makes it feel very human at the same time.
Are you saying? Hold on, I just want to clarify. Are you saying that literally everyone is just trying to murder you because you're branded?
Yeah, because like the people think like, well, if you're branded, like you're either gonna die either way, and so they come up with their own ideology of saying, well, if we kill you, we will not only stop the gods from constantly branding people, but we are also releasing you from what seems to them a normal person seems to die in prison. So it's like I'm going to kill you to free you, but in
Oh.
killing you, like
Wow.
yeah, they
That's
might
a
be
way
able
to
to.
put it.
Yeah, it's tough. So sometimes even in the game, you might wind up like killing off like certain like just normal characters. But that's part of the storyline. It makes it feel much more real.
You know, yeah, I mean, first off, that sounds so intense. Like that actually sounds like ridiculously intense. I played parts of 10, Final Fantasy 10. I played all the way through 9, parts of 7. I played some other games as well, kind of spin-off games. Final Fantasy 13, when I played that game for the first time, I know you've only watched it, you haven't played it, but it plays so different in a way than Final Fantasy 9 that it was really jarring for me. I was like, okay, I don't really know if I want to do this. So, I can't speak too much for the story because I didn't get too much into the story. It sounds like it really was great. And I mean, you'd expect that. I mean, they made 2 sequels, right? But
Uh,
yeah, you were gonna say something?
no, they did make two sequels, which were like they continued to progress the story more and more. But yeah, no, go ahead.
Yeah, but the story was, but the gameplay, I don't know. I'm sure, if it wasn't called Final Fantasy 13, I think I would have liked it. I think I would have gave it a bigger shot. I really didn't get that far into the story, so I really can't, or far into the game either. I don't know if the gameplay opens up later on or how it is, but I have very limited experience with that game, but I have played a lot of the Final Fantasy games. They're all really special in their own way. I mean, you can tell that the guys who made it know how to make a game, except for the original Final Fantasy 14, because that one that one everybody hates that one,
Yeah,
universally hated.
yeah,
So there's
yeah.
there's clearly something going on there. Anyway, I know you are a big fan. Well, maybe not the biggest fan, but I know that you really like Final Fantasy 14. I wasn't too crazy about it when I was kind of getting into it, but the more that I got into it, the now I'm starting to like it. I'm starting to pick it up. But what are your thoughts on Final Fantasy 14?
I think Final Fantasy 14 is something that is like a whole like an MMO that's in a league of its own. I think because it incorporates so many other um, facets of like MMORPGs that have come before it, while also adding in its own little twists here and there. Granted, when I say adding in its own little twist, thus far, what I've encountered is the fact that they don't call dungeons dungeons; they call them duties, which is like a
Yeah.
little like confusing. So I've played two other major MMORPGs before that one, those being World of Warcraft and Rift. And Final Fantasy 14 has definitely left its mark on me. It's something that I see myself like getting rather invested in on the side whenever I'm doing any leisurely stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, because it just has so many features like house building, house decorating to estates and real estate. And like, let's, don't even get me started on how that could probably possibly transfer over into some kind of like real life, real life currency that could be transferred over into that and things like that. Um,
you
there's
become
so
a
much,
real you become a real estate guy. You start selling property. You take it as your full-time job. I mean, there are people who make money off of other games like Eve and even World of Warcraft.
yes, yeah, even World of Warcraft, there have been people that have become, like they don't like they quit their jobs and it's nuts. It's I mean, and granted, everyone has their own criticisms, like, oh, you quit your job to play a video game. Yeah, well, I'm making the money, so I don't really.
This is my job.
And,
Yeah. Well, there was that one guy. The one. There's the guy who won that Fortnite $3 million. I think he got. I don't know what the prize pool was, but he ended up with $3 million. So good for him. I
oh,
mean
that,
it. Yeah. If
yeah,
you happen to be the one guy, then you can do it. So now Dota, just to kind of circle back up just for a second, Dota also had a huge prize pool, right? I mean, I think it has the biggest one out of any game.
yes, it is. It's documented in the Guinness World Records for having the highest prize pool, which seems to top itself out more than the previous year consistently for the last 9 years.
Wow, that's insane. But how big? I'm just curious. How big is the prize pool?
I think we just so the international the tournament that it's called the international. We just reached it's over but we I think we hit $34 million.
Whoa. Say
Yeah,
that again.
yeah,
I'm sorry. 34? Did you say 34
yep. Four.
million?
Yeah, $34 million. Yep.
And where? Hold on. Hold on. Where does the money? How do they get the? Where does the money come from again? I know part of it's from the users, right? They buy passes and stuff like that. Is that where
Yeah,
all the money comes from?
yeah. So a majority of it comes from that. If we're like not even kidding, is yeah, like so what Valve does is that they'll put out this thing called a battle pass, and it allows people to purchase the battle pass, and a subset of that money that was given to Valve will go straight to the prize pool.
Wow.
In fact, the base prize pool that was given by Valve was $1.6 million.
Wait, did you say that was the original prize pool?
Yeah, the original prize pool for the International 2019
Wow.
was 1.6 million. A contributed prize pool of $32.7 million was
Wow.
distributed by the community.
That's actually insane. Well, I guess, if you are the lucky group, the lucky team, I mean, you can actually make incredible like incredible amounts of money from I mean, if you're good, right? And I mean, I think that that's interesting because when I was playing League, I mean, it really does suck you in. You do want to play more, you do want to get better. You see yourself doing a little bit better. It's fun. It's really fun. Um but yeah, I mean, to kind of pivot over, I guess a little bit. What are you playing right now? Like what's kind of what are you into? What have you been checking out? Stuff like that. I've
Um,
been actually looking at this one game. You remember Crash Team Racing? You remember playing that when you were
yeah,
younger?
yeah, I remember that game. Good
Yeah,
time.
I actually want to pick that up. I'm really thinking about it and just like jumping into that because that game was like, ooh, I remember. I remember having so much fun. But what about you? What are you up to?
Right now I've been looking at aside from Final Fantasy 14 and Dota, I've been looking at three other games.
Yeah.
Those being Divinity Original Sin 2, Grim Dawn, and No Man's Sky.
Can you, for those who don't know, what is Grim Dawn and No Man's Sky? I'm actually surprised to hear you say No Man's Sky,
Yeah.
but
So,
yeah.
for those that don't know what Grim Dawn is, if to start, if they're familiar with Torchlight 2, The Adventures of Van Helsing 1, 2, and 3, which was a disaster,
Yikes.
and Diablo 3 or Path of Exile. They're kind of like your top-down RPG games with like skill trees, kind of like a hack and slashy kind of game. But like, I think the novelty that draws me into Grim Dawn and its RPG-esque top-down um, aesthetics is the dual class system. So like allows me to be like two different classes at once. Granted, other games have done that, but I think what kind of is the selling point for me with Grim Dawn is the lore behind it. Granted, I haven't really played it all that much, but the
Hmm.
potential that sits between me and that game is very strong. And it's one of those games that I think after you played it once, you can play it again, but I don't think you can repeat the same thing. Unlike Path of Exile, where like you constantly repeat it and you get better and better over time, but the storyline kind of stays the same. So I think I definitely feel drawn to Grim Dawn because of its like lengthy lore and storyline. Um, and then to answer your other question about No Man's Sky, No Man's Sky is kind of like wow, how do I describe it? Let's take Minecraft and put it in space, and
Wow. Yeah.
let and while certainly the world of Minecraft is infinite, um, let's try and put it on like planets and with their own like respectable, like true to life sizes. Like if I were on this planet and I ran it, it would take just as long as it would take for me to go from here in New York and run around the entire globe. Like it would take exactly that long.
Wow.
Yeah, the game is massive. There's a lot of traveling, things, going from planet to planet. But No Man's Sky is one of those games that's very much so like Minecraft and Terraria and I think I can't remember the other one, but it's like it's like a boxy kind of game,
Yeah.
but it's its own storyline as well.
Now, I know they made some updates to No Man's Sky, right? I mean, there was an original game, but is from what I hear is pretty different from the new version of it. Do you know what they changed about it? Or I mean, are you haven't jumped in at all? You haven't played it yet?
Oh, I have played No Man's Sky a little bit. I played with my best friend and my best friend's younger brother.
Yeah.
Um, and so when No Man's Sky initially came out, it was one of those games that was like lots and lots of hype, of course, like real shocker. And then when it was released, it flopped due to many of its predecessors of other games that get super hyped, and then when they get released, it crashes and burns. But the developing team of No Man's Sky really worked hard to listen to the critics and sifted through the negative comments, of course. And they released an update called the Next Update. And what they changed from the initial update of their initial release to this next, as they call it, quote, the Next Update. Um, they made it so that it was easier to encounter other players because No Man's Sky is predicated on an infinite universe. So the likelihood of me encountering you is, well, let's just say it can become a very lonely game.
Wow.
So they made it easier for multiplayer to happen. They also made it easier to build houses. They made it easier to salvage items, search for items, craft items. They made it much more extensive with the building and everything. And they made like central hubs for commerce, so that like people can buy things without going through the trouble of trying to harvest it on another planet that might be too dangerous. Things like that. And so that update earned a lot of applause and praise for a game that redeemed itself after a bad first step. And I think No Man's Sky earned one of the awards from Valve of the labor of love, which is I, it is one of
That's
those games
funny.
tough to love, but then as you kept working on, you learn to love it over time.
Yeah, yeah, man, I feel that. I think that's why a lot of people are so into like Minecraft because they kind of see they see Minecraft as their labor of love. I mean, you see some people. There was one article I saw, I think it was on Twitter, where this one guy posted this photo of this huge city and he was like, "City I've been working on for 8 to 9 years." I was like, "Oh, okay. First off, I hope you did the interior for every one of those buildings in 8 years." But wow, I mean, like some people can really get into something and like so that's cool, man. I think that's pretty awesome. For the game to be that big though, I mean that's actually kind of crazy. I don't know how you're supposed to if you ever get lost, you know what I mean? You're kind of like
That up,
you're done.
yeah, you're pretty much done, but they also fix it up too, so you don't get lost. My goodness.
Ah, okay. So you said it's not likely for you to find someone else? Like it's kind of like you're just kind of doing your own thing, really?
Yeah, before they released the next update, it was almost infinitely impossible to find another person. And even if you did, there was no means of interaction or even like emojis or gestures that you can make. Now they have gestures.
Yeah.
And so now like you can run into other people, albeit if they're willing to interact with you. Um, but ultimately, like they encourage like bring your friends because that's probably the best way to experience it and make the fastest progress and experience all that the game has to offer.
Yeah, well, that's cool. I haven't been really playing too much other than I've been playing a little bit of Final Fantasy 14. We were talking about that before. I think it's fun. I think it's pretty it is my labor of love as you as you said. Uh you know, I've been playing, League of Legends, but the thing with me for MOBAs is that it's like when you're going on a losing streak, like you're kind of, at least for me, I'm done. Like I'm trying to like, whatever, take a break, go back to it later. Um, but I think everything that you get yourself into, I don't know, it kind of does become in a way a labor of love. I think the last single player game I played that I really enjoyed was probably, I don't know if you've ever heard of this game before, Danganronpa.
Oh, I think about a week or so ago, I went to a sushi buffet, and the person that I went with was talking about Danganronpa,
Oh,
and
really? They were.
super into it. And
Yeah?
I once he described it, I was like, that sounds like a very like anime as in like a very what you call it
Yeah.
like a PS type style of game, but with like a little bit more psychological layers in that
Yeah,
game.
it is. That's exactly what it is. It has it's one of those games you so I'm playing it right and I'm like rolling my eyes. I'm like, "Oh god." It's cuz there's like the typical anime tropes and you're like, "All right, but like the my one I'll tell you my one complaint about the game really. I mean, it's a fine game. It really is a fine game.
Mhm.
It is a game in the truest sense of the word. It is a game. Um but my one gripe with Danganronpa is that like if a character is like acts a certain way, like that is who the character is. Like there's not too much depth to some of these characters. Like you can kind of tell they're just there just to be a certain kind of person, just to move the story along, which is not necessarily a bad thing because when you look at how big the cast is. But that was just my one small gripe with it. But you know what, it is definitely the kind of game where you really don't know what's happening until it goes down. So that was a real highlight of it.
I think yeah, Danganronpa is one of those games. It's just kind of like it's more fun when you do it with other people and with friends, and then how they act in those games. I think that's what adds the appeal, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, I just started the second one because there's a couple actually. It was pretty successful. The first one doesn't look that great though. You can tell it was like not it wasn't made for a recent generation. Let's just say, but it's fun. I mean, if you ever get around to it, it is a cool game. Um, what
Okay.
have you been playing anything you finished recently or anything like that?
Did anything that I finished?
Whether
I
you've been
played.
playing that you've enjoyed recently.
I think I played this game called oh no, what? My brain is like fried. It was called Souls. What is it called? Sword and Souls Never Seen. Um,
Oh, okay. I've never heard of that before.
oh yeah, it's and to be honest, the reason why I even picked up this game is I saw it in an ad over Facebook, and I was like, what is this? And it turned out to be this like not point and click, but like a very small RPG. Something it's like a flash animation RPG. But this is a game you would certainly see over like miniclip.com or armorgames.com
Mhm.
that like, just kind of like went on its own voyage and decided to put itself in the Steam store. And it did pretty well. I finished that game in maybe less than a week. um,
Oh, nice. Wow. That's
yeah,
impressive.
yeah, it wasn't like a very. I would say it's not a very long game, but it's like one of those games that you kind of just fly through it, and I liked it. It's one that I finished. It's kind of like it guess it kind of just chalks it up to showing more of who I am and who like what kind of games I'm really into. And so like, as long as like RPGs and something that gives me a false sense of progress and productivity, um,
Wow. Well,
immersed
that's
in
a
it,
way to say it. That's definitely a way to say it.
yeah, it's definitely gonna draw me in. I think one of my better favorite games that I finished I think a year or so ago was Divinity Original Sin. That was probably one of
Oh, yeah. You were telling me about that game. Now, you really, really like Divinity. And I think a lot of other people really do too.
Yeah, Divinity was one of those games that was like a one hit wonder, but then they released Divinity Original Sin 2, and we're gonna have to change that one hit wonder to a two hit wonder because those guys knew exactly what they were doing.
Yeah, you always love it when you find a developer who just knows, who's just self-aware 100%. They understand what's needed and they pump stuff out. That's like how much goodwill CD Project Red has with a lot of people. I mean, they just love that studio because they're not like money grubbing in a world where people are so sick of like microtransactions. I mean, and that's certainly not everybody because these microtransactions make companies a ton of money, but at least as far as like the people who speak out on social media and stuff about games, like people really do love the like certain developers and certain groups who do certain things. So that's awesome. That's cool to see. But anyway, Kirk, I think we'll probably wrap it up around here. We did talk about having a conversation about something different unrelated, so we could do that. I'm guessing next time. I mean, we could always record something, pop it up. But if there's there anything that you'd like to leave for the audience, or how can people find you if they want to follow you, see what you're up to, or anything like that?
Yeah. For me, I also work on my own podcast with another friend of mine, Eric. And we have a podcast called Behind Closed Mouths. But start if you're looking for me, you can find me over Instagram on Efrain. The username is EPHRAIN underscore. Again, that's EPHRAIN underscore. And then if you're looking for the podcast that my friend and I are working on, it's called Behind Closed Mouths. You can find us over Anchor, Pocket Cast, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, and a few others. But essentially, you can find us over Anchor and Spotify. And essentially, Behind Closed Mouths is a podcast that kind of opens the ears and minds of individuals that are resisting conversations that can be vital but require us to be vulnerable. We're kind of committed to open communication and exposing the listeners to a better and healthier perspective. But essentially, our goal is to create a community of listeners whose desire is to build stronger and more meaningful bonds with one another. And with your support, we can help break down those barriers that hold us back from being better than who we were before.
So I was telling you before last time we recorded about this, but you have like, I think you've only recorded one episode, but you have the entire synopsis of the entire thing down packed, almost as if you're just reading it off of a sheet of paper. So I commend you for that. And that's not something that people can just do. It's just like this is exactly what it is, word for word. But so that's really cool. I always tell you you're a great communicator. But if you guys want to find Kirk on his Instagram, like he mentioned, he has the funniest Instagram I've ever seen. And I don't know, I guess it depends on your sense of humor, but he does a lot of dumb stuff, and I think it's actually hilarious. It's the kind of dumb stuff where you're like, what is happening? But anyway, Kirk, I want to say thank you for taking the time out of your day to produce this episode of Methods. I think that the audience will really appreciate that and your contribution. So thank you.
Yes, thank you for having me with you guys and meeting up on the next episode.
Yeah, sounds good. So, all right, thank you, buddy. We'll probably end it here. So, if you guys enjoyed this episode of Methods, please feel free to share it on social media. That's probably going to be the best way for us to get more kind of notoriety, get more viewers and stuff like that. It's usually pretty difficult when you're starting out to get people watching, but otherwise, let me know what you guys think. Give us any feedback that you want to in the comments section wherever you're watching this on a podcast service or YouTube or what have you. And let's kind of keep the conversation going. We don't really know. I don't have a topic planned for the next episode, but that's kind of the nature of the show right now. We'll see if we settle down into a certain genre or something like that. But for now, let's keep things as they are. But thank you everybody for listening. Have a great day. Thank you, Kirk, and we'll end it here. So thank you guys.